All right, I want to now move on then back to the Parliamentary Committee on National Security and Administration, which is currently going to be quizzing and asking questions to the CS for Interior, Fred Matiang'i, and the Immigration PS, Gordon Kihalangwa, with regard to Miguna's saga last week at the GKIA that led to the second deportation of him. We understand that session, as you can see, is already on. Let's listen in.
A very fair, objective and straightforward order. That A, we facilitate, this is the language that the order uses, we facilitate Mr. Miguna to come back to the country and undertake whatever other activities he wanted to undertake, either A, using his Canadian passport, or B, we give him Kenyan papers at the airport. C, the Honorable Judge ordered that the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights is allowed to observe that process at the airport. So the advisory I received from both my peers and the Attorney General is that we comply in total 100% with the decision of the Constitutional Court. And based on that, our peers got in touch with Mr. Miguna's lawyers. Our Director of Immigration Services got in touch with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and all was set for the arrival of Mr. Miguna on the 26th of March. When Mr. Miguna arrived, he refused to give his Canadian passport to be stamped because we had taken a decision that he did not even need to apply for a visa because of the court order. His passport was going to be stamped gratis. He would be allowed to come into the country without having to apply for visa. This is a courtesy extended government to government. He refused to surrender, to give his passport to be stamped. And for a whole day, there was a lot of drama. My peers will later on speak in some more graphic terms on what was happening. He was in constant communication with the lawyers at the airport. Later on in the day, one of them called me or looked for me, and I explained the issues the way they are. It's a straightforward issue, Mr. Chairman. It's a less than a half-a-minute affair to give your passport to be stamped and to come out. But he refused to give his passport. Then, of course, we resorted to number 2 order as directed by the judge against tradition and practice. We organized for the application forms to be taken to him at the airport. He tore them, he shredded them to pieces and refused to fill them out. We went beyond that because as government, and I can confirm to you, we were determined that this matter does not take so much of all our time. It is not necessary, honestly. I reached out to my colleague, the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs, and her peers to contact the Canadian High Commission so that the Canadian High Commissioner would extend consular services in the diplomatic manner in which they do to Mr. Miguna. The Canadian High Commissioner acceded, sent consular officers to the airport to meet with Mr. Miguna, and they spent 3 hours persuading him either to give his passport to be stamped or they could try to find a way of facilitating him in the diplomatic manner to get out of the airport. He refused. The rest is known to the public. Senior leaders in the political leadership of a party that Mr. Miguna belongs to also made an effort, and it didn't quite work out. The following day, his lawyers went to court, and I must say at this point, lied to the court that A, Mr. Miguna's passport was confiscated, which is not true. One of the lawyers swore an affidavit to that effect. And 2, that he was detained at the airport, both of which were not true. Because, Mr. Chairman, as you know, according to migration rules around the world, until a passenger establishes himself or herself by going through the immigration section, they remain on the airside of the airport. And when they remain on the airside of the airport, they cannot be held in custody by the police. Mr. Miguna was not arrested, which is a fact. He was not in the custody of the Inspector General of Police. So there is no way the Inspector General of Police could produce someone in court who was not in his custody. I can say it here for the record, Mr. Chairman, honorable members, we did not confiscate Mr. Miguna's passport. And now he has admitted himself and made the statement that actually the passport is with him, and he has admitted that he deliberately refused to give the passport to be stamped. On that day, on Wednesday, the Attorney General spent the day in court begging to be heard, because when the first judge made an order that Miguna be produced in court the following day, clearly the judge A was not interested in the compliance with the previous judge's orders, and B did not have an opportunity to hear from the Director of Immigration. And the Director of Immigration was being required to do the impossible. He could not produce somebody who was not already cleared and was not in Kenya. But we couldn't be heard. I mean, the judge flatly refused and said they could not hear us. At 1 o'clock, the same judicial officer made an order that the Inspector General of Police, the PS, and myself appear in court personally 1.5 hours later. Again, for the record, Mr. Chairman, honorable members, we were at the GSU pass-out parade in Embakasi. Many of you, honorable members, in this committee are very exposed people, very experienced people. You understand this. Many of you have been in this sector before. The GSU pass-out parade is a Spartan straight ceremony that follows a tradition. You can interrupt in the middle. We don't even carry cell phones to that function. And we didn't know that such an order had been made until way after the function, when my PS Interior, Dr. Kibijo, said, by the way, an officer rang me up to say that you are supposed to appear before a judge. Said, but we have not even been served any court orders in the first place. And there is no way we would be there anyway because we were the GSU pass-out parade. I'm told the judicial officer said the GSU pass-out parade is not that important. And then, when the Attorney General begged even further, almost on his knees, that we have actually not been served, the judicial officer said, we have been on TV the whole morning. By now, the officials should know that we have ordered they come before us. Mr. Chairman, honorable members, we don't watch TV at the GSU pass-out parade. So, the long and short of it is that the Attorney General continued to plead that we be heard so that we can explain our side of the story, which did not happen throughout. The long and short of it is that we got finally condemned and heard, and condemned on the basis of lies. And now that I have this opportunity, Mr. Chairman, the Constitution says that cabinet secretaries are accountable to the people of Kenya through Parliament. Now I have to be accountable to you. And I want to say this for the record. I have not been served one court order, one, not two, one,